I will start, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to 11th session of day 4. Now I would like to welcome the resource person for this afternoon session, Dr. V. Himabindu. And I would like to have some small introduction about her. Dr. Himabindu Valiveti, currently professor in Department of ECE of Gokaraju Rangaraju Institute of Engineering and Technology. She completed her PhD from Geetham Deemed to be University and Masters in Telecommunication Engineering from Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, Australia. Dr. Valiveti has over 17 years of industry, academic, and research experience put together. She published over 20 research articles in peer-reviewed international journals and conferences. Her research interests include computer networks, wireless communications, wireless sensor networks, probability and stochastic processes, signal processing, and artificial intelligence. She has organized a conference titled Advances in Computers, Computing, and Embedded Systems with AICT funding during September 2020. She has an approved consultancy project of 25 lakhs for Ample Autotech Private Limited, where Dr. Valiveti has been working alongside mechanical faculty of her institute on reliability of vehicle suspension systems using software applications and accident prediction using speed of the vehicles, roughage of roads, and speech recognition systems. She is an active speaker for various conferences, FDPs, workshops, and training programs, and a reviewer for numerous journals. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I think that was a lengthy introduction, but I'm obliged to thank you, Shilpa, once again. So shall I share the screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, we can share this.
Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, visible clearly.
Okay. Shall I start?
Yes, ma'am. We'll start.
A very good afternoon, one and all. I think I have got my screen. Hang on. Yeah. Very good afternoon, one and all. I'm Dr. Himabindu, professor in the Department of ECE. Today we're going to talk about Internet of Nano Things for telehealth. I'm going to present you the concept and the open research areas and a very small model of channel model for the path loss as well as security in the health region. So moving forward, this is going to be the entire outline of the presentation. So as we all know that Internet of things, Internet of nano things, Internet of everything, Internet of bio nano things, and bio Internet of nano things. There's a lot of IoT. IoT has been a base for a lot of architectures that have been developed of late, and been over a decade that IoT is very much very much progressive, and the proliferation of the IoT nodes in the architectures is pretty visible to everyone and all, and we've been using IoT pretty well in our day-to-day life, whether it be for home automation or whether it be for medical purposes. So that is what I'm going to start with. That is the very introduction of where I'm going to start, and then we will see the IoT architecture and how the nano network architecture has come up from the IoT architecture will be discussed over there, and then we will slowly move on to the nanotechnology, so on and so forth, the classification. It's actually a pretty huge domain in itself. Communication and nanotechnology are pretty huge communications. They've been in 1959 itself, the coin has been tossed, but because there are a lot of paradigms that have to come together and they have to blend in to produce a nano sensor or a nanotechnology based application. And that's the reason why I guess the progress is pretty slow. Okay, so and then towards the end, I'm going to talk about the channel modeling and the security, that is authentication and nano communication for telehealth. And then I'll be talking about a few open research areas in the challenges and future advancements of INT, and I will be concluding the session thereafter. Right. So moving forward to the IoT architecture, I think you must have, all the participants must have seen this architecture many a times in the previous 10 lectures, but this happens to be the very core base. I mean, the base for the entire IOX. I would like to call it as IOX because there's a lot of things that we can fill with the X. So the three layers, the very basic three layers are the perception layer, where we have the sensors and actuators and the edge devices that basically interact with the outside environment, right? And then we move on to the network layer, which is the middle level layer. And this network layer is basically responsible for discovering, connecting, and translating devices over the network. And in coordination with the application layer, there always has to be a coordination with the layers amongst each other, which is very important. I hope all of you are aware of the concept from the computer networks. And finally, onto the application layer, which is the user interface that we can directly interact with. And that is where the data processing, storage with specialized services and functionality for users is attained. And we have all the cloud servers and everything in the application layer itself, the connectivity to the cloud servers. That's what I meant to say. And the routers and gateways are there in the network layer. Sensors and actuators, as we all very well know, are there in the perception layer. Right. So this is a different four-stage networking architecture of IoT. So every data that is generated is basically come up from the IoT devices, and the IoT device is an equipment that counts as an IoT device if it satisfies a few conditions. And the first condition being the device should be capable of communicating with other devices and connect with an internet network. That is the core, that is the core thing that has to happen. All of us are very well aware of it. And it must have hardware interfaces and also a firmware, with some firmware or an operating system. We can also term it as an operating system, which is used for setting up a communication with other devices. That is the first core issue, core point. And then obviously the sensors and actuators that we talked of in the previous slide. The sensors, all of us know, are used for collecting the static or dynamic information from the physical world. And then that sensor information is shared to the cloud. Actuator is, we also have actuators. We basically term sensors as the input devices and actuators are the output devices, like relays. Temperature can be talked of. Thermometer, where we read in the temperature, can be talked of as a sensor. Okay, and apart from that, the device must also have a controller or a processor to capture data, which is very much by default. It has to capture data, and also it should have the ability to store it. It is often temporary. We don't tend to store data permanently quite often, because that's going to put a lot of load on our revenue. So it's a temporary storage that we'd be looking for, unless and until it is quite a mandate. And these are the three main important things that we need to have. And most of the IoT devices are built on standard IoT boards. All of us know the standard IoT boards are microcontroller boards. They can either be a single board computers, and some of the boards include Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and BeagleBone, QB board. There are a lot of IoT boards that we've been using of late. And the boards obviously come with a microcontroller and a processor, which is integrated with an onboard memory, whether it be RAM and ROM as well. And this also comes with a general purpose input output pin, so on and so forth. And we have interfaces, which is the communication channels that we talk of. They're quite important, and like the USB or the I2C or SPI or TWI or Ethernet also. So these are the various interfaces that we can talk of. Okay. And you need to have a physical device, which is the IoT device, right? So this is what it is. And then we talk about the gateway capabilities. So gateways, it is not always necessary that we have a gateway at all times. So and the role of gateways basically is is to set up a connection with other devices. And this can be done with the help of a gateway or without the help of a gateway. As you can see in the figure above, if you have two different networks, if the network is heterogeneous, then you would obviously be needing a gateway to connect the two of them. And if the network is homogeneous, then you can directly talk to each other. Right, so this is the role of gateways might not be so important, but most often gateways, because we work in a heterogeneous environment, we generally tend to use the gateways, and the gateway is basically used for collecting and extracting the sensor data, which is as per the device protocol. The gateway functions according to the device protocol, and it basically wraps it and formats it according to the protocol of the communication throughout the network layer, and then pushes the data to the communication network for further transmission, whether it can be into the cloud or a particular server. Okay, and on the way back, I mean, when you're talking about the receiver to the transmit to the communication, so it basically receives and extracts the data and or the information from the cloud server, and likewise it unwraps it and then formats it and then forwards it to the formats it to the IoT device. So gateway is obviously used for the two-way communication. I'm sure most of us are pretty much aware of it. And then moving back to the IoT architecture, and so we got to talk about the communication network here, and the communication network is generally typically an internet network, the physical link or the network transport and application and the communication protocol that operate in the different layers, depending on what sort of networking architecture we choose to is talked of in the communication network. And then moving on to the cloud and the server, the buzzwords that we hear are cloud computing, edge computing, fog computing. There's a lot of things. I'm not pretty much aware of what they are, but yes, the basic definition is obviously known to all of us. So the cloud or the server is the edge of an IoT system. And a cloud base is basically used to store the data that is collected from the different IoT devices, and it performs various analytics, data analytics and data mining, and it derives useful insights from it. That is the basic responsibility of the cloud reserve. And apart from that, the cloud is also responsible for managing the connected devices and networks. Okay, and a device-to-device communication is also a core aspect of the cloud, the server, cloud or the server, and it is basically used to implement the IoT applications by operating and synchronizing different IoT devices, which are able to put together, which are basically able to put together in a network. Okay, and we have various cloud networks. You have private networks, private cloud services, and public cloud services to enable an IoT application like AWS, and then we have Google Cloud, right? And then moving on to the last part of the networking architecture is the IoT application, and the processing, the basic data that is collected is from the device is actually turned into a particular value. That is what the application layer of the in the final stage of the networking architecture basically presents to us, and the processing, mining, as well as analysis of the data in the cloud is done by this particular IoT application. I think we can, I mean, there are a lot of examples that we are pretty much aware of, so I wouldn't be bothered to talk about the applications of IoT, because you might have heard about it in regards to health, etc., all the week long. And then moving on to the actual concept of nanotechnology. So nanotechnology, I remember hearing it the first time hearing it somewhere around 2002 or 2003. That is when I got to know that there is such a technology that exists, but I wasn't sure what it is. Once we dig deep, nanotechnology is basically consists of a nanotechnology consists of processing, separation, consolidation, and deformation of materials by one atom or by one molecule. So here we are going to introduce the concept of atoms and molecules, and with that is which the nano technology devices are made of. And basically, nanotechnology is the concept that enables the miniaturization and fabrication of devices in a scale that is ranging from 1 to 100 nanometers. I hope all of us understand what nanometers is. So 1 to 100 nanometers, that's a pretty small. That is going to be handed to us, as Dr. Aarti mentioned in her session. It's a fine grain. It's of the size of the rice. So that is what we are dealing with. Okay, and with the concept was first tossed by Richard Feynman in the year 1959, and then Taniguchi was a Japanese scientist. And for the nanotechnology word being tossed, Richard Feynman was awarded, he's a physicist who was awarded the Nobel Prize. And next, moving forward with it, and Taniguchi introduced the concept of nanotechnology again to all of us. And moving on with nano devices, nano components, nano machines, there's a lot of evolution that had come up with the toss of the nanotechnology word. And this huge advancement of nanotechnology over the past years has made the devices to shrink into a micro scale initially, and then it has been reduced to nanoscale. We're talking about nanometers now, so it's been reduced into nanoscale. So, and apart from that, the Internet of Nano Things, the concept that we are going to discuss today, is generally regarded as the ultimate, it is regarded as the ultimate formation of current sensor networks that are in use. And it will also help us in developing the nano networks, which will be used for numerous applications, day-to-day applications that we're going to see down the line. Right? So this is about the basic introduction of nanotechnology. And moving on to what IONT is basically, I just mentioned what IONT is, and just to take it a bit more forward, we're going to develop something called as nano machines with this Internet of Nano Things. That is the basic element that we're going to look at. And these nano machines have the ability to interconnect with the micro and macro devices that are available around, and the network that is formed with the help of these micro, macro, nano devices around has basically tossed the word Internet of Nano Things. And it's a pretty new technology that has come up in this. It's been standardized in the year 2015, as we can see, and it's been talked of initially in Georgia Tech University. And there are two different variants of IONT that we're going to see, and not two different, not IONT, sorry about that, but the base models or the base nano networks that are that made our life look through for IONT are molecular communication and nano electromagnetic communication that you're going to see on that you're seeing on the slide. And standard model that's been developed for IONT is the IEEE 1906.1.1, and it's called Yang model, yet another next generation. So it's been tossed in the year 2015. So pretty new technology. There is a lot of scope. I myself have not digged much deeper into the concept, but yes, the bounds are completely blurred. There are no bounds, obviously, for the technology as far as I know now. And then talking about the terahertz channel, terahertz channel basically ranges between 100 gigahertz and 10 terahertz. So we are talking about very, very high frequencies. So the antennas become quite small, and that is what we call as the nano devices basically. So the band is still unlicensed, even to till date. The band is completely unlicensed, and despite having a lot of limitations in this band, for basically short and medium range communications. There are a lot of applications, especially in terms of health, that have been developed on the basis of IoT. And then this is the nano network. As I've told you, nano machines, nano networks, the evolution has been, we've seen a lot of nano devices that have come up one after the other. And nano machine is basically a nanotechnology enabled device, and it is a the very basic functional unit. And this nano machine is basically used for computing, data storing, sensing, and also actuation purposes. Very much we're going to see whatever we've seen in IoT, it's going to repeat, but in a nano scale. That is something. And because we're talking about terahertz frequency, the frequency range is also pretty different, and the routing, and we're also talking about molecular communication. There's a lot of new things coming up here when we're talking about the nano networks. And nano network, the name itself implies it is an interconnection of all the nano machines. And obviously all the tasks are executed in a distributed, or generally in a distributed fashion, because we have sensors all around the body, spread all around the body. If you're talking about health applications in specific, so we'd be having the communication happening in a distributed fashion. Right, so this is about the nano network. And then there are various designs. We have layered designs. All of us understand what the layered design is, what happens first and then what happens next. And there's a figure, I couldn't get hold of that figure. The clarity wasn't good, but the design of nano machines is pretty well depicted in that figure. And there are three different variants of design of nano machines. The first one being top-down approach. So in the top-down approach, the existing MEMS are basically scaled down to the nano level. That is what is happening in the top-down approach. The MEMS are converted into NEMS. And then in the bottom-up approach, what they're doing is right from the scratch. The design of the nano machine is done right from the scratch completely. We must have heard the term of graphene nanotube. All these are the ones which have been popped up from the bottom-up approach. And we are creating nano machines with the help of materials like graphene. Graphene is very mostly used, and we're going to see the advantages of graphene in the coming slides. So and these in the bottom-up approach, obviously we are starting from the scratch. And there's one more, we also have nano machines in nature. Our human cells and tissues, they're all supposed to be all the biological track that we have in us or in the animals, they're all considered to be nano machines. And with the help of molecules, there's a communication that is happening, and we can see an entire communication channel. Not only a channel, the transmitter channel and the receiver that is formed in our body with the help of these nano devices. And that's possible because we have the molecular communication in place. And moving forward, the next is the hybrid approach. So a hybrid approach, it's pretty quite but obvious, because it's a blend of natural or bottom-up approach, or natural or the human cells with top-down approach. So these are all the hybrid approaches. So next is the nano communication. So when we're talking about nano communication, the miniature sensors that we're going to devise are interconnected with the help of nano networks. And as I mentioned earlier, we can obtain fine-grained data within objects, and we wouldn't even imagine that we can, what do we say? We can collect data from the areas which are quite hard to access. And this nanotechnology has enabled the human race to do that, to collect the areas. And in one particular series I had been seen that there's a simulation, there's a simulation like how we learn driving in simulation. The brain has been operated under simulation with the help of these devices, and then the real patient has been operated. So there are a lot of advantages when we have nano communication in place, especially for the health purposes, especially when we talk about the health. Um, so the basic purpose of this IoT is to interconnect different types of devices that have been developed on the nanoscale, and they form a communication network. And it allows the collection of data in different places, from different places. And depending on the category, we have the nano machines dividing into larger systems like the micro devices, and we can have a communication between two or more nano machines. We can have communication between nano machine and the system, and two or more nano machines. And the communication technologies, as I mentioned earlier, can be electromagnetic, acoustic, nanomechanical, or even molecular, which we're going to see down the line. Okay, so this is the basic nano communication, the network of nano communication right in front of us. And there are two different variants with which we can see. And the figure basically illustrates the minutest definitions that we have used here, that we would be using for interconnecting the nano devices and form a nano network at the end of the day. So if we take, for example, the one that is seen over here, the on-body nanosensors are basically used to provide the electrocardiographic and other physiological signs. And when we talk, this is about the on-body sensors. So we also have sensors that are used for agriculture, nanosensors that are used for agriculture and other environmental purposes. And we can see that a few other environmental nanosensors are used to collect information about the pathogens and the allergens in the given area. Pathogens are basically virus, fungus, or bacteria. These are all termed as pathogens, and whatever any allergies we have, the environmental nanosensors can help us detect all these types of pathogens and allergens in a particular area. Obviously, the area is minimized around the sensor. And there's another important device that we can see is the micro gateway. The micro gateway, and these micro gateway is obviously used for interfacing, as we talked of earlier in IoT when we are seeing the IoT architecture. So this micro gateway is basically used for connecting the conventional micro sensors, whatever we have available, to that of the nano sensors. So we can talk them, or we can mention them as an intermediate layer of devices. The gateway, obviously, it's an intermediate layer, and it has retained the name again. And why are we so keen on nano communication? Firstly, body area networks. Of late, we've been hearing a lot about body area networks, and then nano communication being used in the body area networks. When we basically try to distinguish this nano communication from the traditional wireless communications, it is there are relatively very slow changes in the monitored signals in our body. So obviously we will have reduced number of readings. So we have a very less number of readings, and when energy consumption is also minimized, because we're talking about not electromagnetic communication, but we're talking about molecular communication. And the small size of the implanted devices. So when we are talking about terahertz frequency, we will also be witnessing the nano antennas. We will be completely witnessing the nano antennas and the small size of the implanted devices. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. We can directly swallow the nano biosensors. There are a few applications wherein I've read that the sensors have been swallowed, which are termed as nano devices or nano machines. They've been completely swallowed, or an invasive method is also quite easy when you have a very small device. And the disadvantage, we can, I mean, it might not be quoted as a disadvantage, because when you're trying to apply it for a health application, distance wouldn't matter. We are to monitor the person. We are to monitor the health of the person or the blood levels of the person. So the distance wouldn't be a big problem. But nano communication, they have relatively low transmission ranges. We can literally literally quote the range as in terms of meters or a few meters. I mean, a meter or a few meters. And one more thing is, how can a signal transfer? We are talking about in body, on body. So we need to have the communication of the signal through our body tissues and cells. So this is also one criteria that has been worked on for a long time, which is slowing the process of IONT to flourish overnight. So these are the basic elements of nano communication. And where you have routing techniques that can be employed on this. You have various the channel modeling can be done in different ways. There are a lot of variants in which we can work on when we're talking about nano communication. And this is the actual molecular communication that I'm talking about. So this is obviously inspired from the molecular information delivery which exists in nature. As I told you earlier, we can see a complete complete transmitter channel and a receiver with the molecular communication. Then that is what is seen. So the transmitter is generally considered to be a single point, and the receiver is generally spherical in shape. So the advantage of that is, when the transmitter generates the molecules from a single point, and the receiver collects it. So the encoding, the transmission, the decoding, the propagation via the channel, the decoding and reception are um, relatively analogous to what we see in the regular communication systems. And the same molecular communication is shown to us with the help of an implanted device and a nano sensor, which is which is basically used to detect the presence of bacteria or virus that is present in our body. So this is the molecular communication on the onset. And as I mentioned earlier, this is completely inspired by the molecular information that is existing in nature. And the information transmission by the device is enabled by the exchange of molecules. Quite but obvious. The transmitter transmits the molecules, and the receiver obviously receives the same. So every procedure that we see in the regular and the conventional networks can be applicable for molecular nano communications as well. And as I mentioned earlier, um, the transmitter is basically a single point, and the receiver is spherical. So all the molecules are received by the same point, are transmitted at the same point, but the receiver gathers in a certain area of a reception. There is a particular area in which it can gather, till where it can gather molecules. Beyond that, they are considered to be lost. Okay, and the basic concept is, the molecules completely diffuse in the environment, and only a few will be received by the receiver. The receiver then decodes the information. It decodes the information and generates it into the appropriate form. Okay, and these nano networks that we see are can represent transmitted information as data stored within a DNA component. So we can consider that DNA component we can talk of this DNA component as an IP packet. IP packet, or we can think of it in a binary form. We will go to that in the next slide. What binary form has to got to do with this. So usually the binary value represents the concentration of molecules that are transmitted between the nodes. So for example, if you're talking about one here, we can pretty well see one here in the binary bit one, and we have an electromagnetic wave. And when you have one, it is obvious that we have the molecules appearing over here. And when we have a 0 bit transmitted, when we have a 0 being transmitted, it is completely silent and there are no molecules transmitted in this zone. So we can, the transmission of molecules or can be completely talked of as on-off keying, and we can also use that on-off keying modulation procedure over here when we're talking about molecular communication. So but due to the limited range of molecules or any other component or molecules that are carrying the message, the routing technique that is there within the molecular networks has to be multi-hop. It has to be multi-hop, and a relay has to be used. As I told you earlier, centralization is quite difficult. So it's always generally a distributed network that we talk of when we talk about the biosensors. And so you can have, as seen in here, we can have query based routing, or we can also have polling at the micro gateway to collect the data. So these are the various routing techniques. So you pass a query and you get the reply back. So different routing techniques can be applied in here. And then everything else is self-explanatory. I don't think there's anything left to talk about. We all know what encoding is, transmission is, propagation is, so I wouldn't be stressing more on it. But to conclude, for the modulation and demodulation, we would be using the on-off keying in the molecular communication. So when you have one, so the transmission releases the molecules which are equivalent to the width of the pulse, and if you have a 0, obviously it wouldn't be, it would be in the silent zone. So the receiver, how does it detect? That is one more thing. So the receiver basically adapts threshold based detection. So it is very similar to the energy detection in in wireless communication that we encounter. So if at all the received number of molecules is greater than threshold, then the detected bit is considered to be 1. So if it is lesser than the threshold, then the detected bit is considered to be 0. That is how the detection happens with the help of the receiver. Next is the electromagnetic nano network or nano electromagnetic network, and the name itself implies transmission and reception of the electromagnetic electromagnetic radiation is via the nanomaterials, and most of the nanomaterials are graphene based these days. We have carbon nanotubes that have been come up, and the recent advancements that we are going to see, that we have witnessed in the molecular and carbon electronics, have actually open doors for the new generation electronic nano components. And we have seen nano batteries. This is also a new term that I've heard. Nano batteries, something which I have not heard. Nano memories, yes, nano memories is something we all have heard. So there's a lot of nano antennas, and all the logical circuitry that we are going to put in a network is in the nanoscale, ultimately in the nanoscale. So again, when we talk about routing, there are different types of routing that we can talk of here. The micro gateway, we have the terahertz and the gigahertz gigahertz antennas, and the gateway is used as an interface especially in a heterogeneous network, and the nano sensors are used to sense the data. And we have energy harvesting schemes also. These energy harvesting schemes are basically their SWIP technology. I cannot recollect the full form, sorry about that. SWIP, SWIPT. It's a beautiful technology where we harvest the energy, and it is completely based on the time slot division. Once we in the one time slot, we uh, basically harvest the energy in the very first packet, and then we use it. I am unable to recollect that technology, but yes, SWIFT happens to be a pretty good energy harvesting technology. I hope I'm audible. I haven't turned on the video because of bandwidth constraints, so I guess all is okay. Shilpa ma'am, Anil sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Next is so these are the we've almost seen the traditional, I mean, molecular networks, and we also discussed the differences. Basically, what are the basic advantages and constraints in molecular networks, and this is the difference that I've got from ENF Akled's paper, which talks about Internet of Nano Things. So molecular communication, as in the traditional communications, we have to transmit large amounts of data. We have a lot of downloading and uploading going on. So the bandwidth is always important, and bandwidth is talked of. But when we are talking about sensing and using bio-nano sensors in order to take care of our health or health monitoring, so we are least bothered. At the end of the day, the accuracy of the information that is obtained from our body is more important than anything. So so this is enabled especially by the molecular communication. And in traditional communication, obviously it transmits in the speed of light. We all very well know that the propagation speed, and here in the molecular communication, it is extremely slow, and we can even give the same justification that I just talked of. Accuracy is more important, but to be able to recreate a tissue with the help of these nano sensors is more important than having fast communication. So I think it has got its pros, and the encoded information is completely in the form of voice, text, and video. And this here, because we have molecular transmission happening, so we have chemical states or the processes. And one important thing is the energy consumption is pretty low. We are talking about nano biosensors, and the energy consumption is pretty low for the entire working of the network, whereas we all pretty well know that the energy consumption is pretty high for the traditional networks. And noise is something which is inevitable, whether it is in the electromagnetic fields and signals, or we talk about the molecular communication. Noise is something which is absolutely inevitable, and we can't let go it. We also have noise in the nano networks, and it is very similar to what we see in the traditional networks, but a bit on a lower scale, I reckon. I cannot completely say about it, but yes, we do have a noise. Next is the IoT applications. It's very important for us to understand the applications first and then move on to the concept, rather than trying to understand the concept first and then talking about the application. So in the last 10 sessions, you must have seen such figures where you have a lot of applications that come up the wearable health and environmental trackers. We have the IoT or IoBT or BIoT used for or IoE used for industry 4.0, agriculture, multimedia, smart cities. IoNT is no less. It can be applicable anywhere with the with the hurdles that we have seen, not hurdles, but with a bit of drawbacks that we have seen in the previous slide, but it has its own advantages too. So these are the potential applications that we have um, um, in the IoNT basically. And the most talked of is the biomedical application. The most talked of is the biomedical application, and the one that we are going to see over here is health monitoring. So this is a picture that I have snapped off from a movie. So there's as I told you, the digestible nano devices have been fed via the mouth to the person, and there's a wristband. That wristband is basically used for entire communication. So this wristband is used to monitor the oxygen and the cholesterol levels or hormonal disorders or early diagnosis of any tumor or cancer. It's pretty important. And the basic impurities that are there in the bed or the blood or pathogens or allergens, as mentioned earlier, can also be devised depending on what sort of nano device. So the device that we can put through our mouth, obviously if we implanting it's different. The ones we put through into our mouth have to be digestible, and they're termed as digestible nano devices. And it's also used for immune system support. The immune system is completely composed. Developed immune system is completely composed of several nano machines, which is the fundamental building unit, and it protects the organisms against the diseases. And so these nano machines are, as I mentioned earlier, I think I'm reiterating the same thing over and over again, but it's quite important. So these nano machines are basically a collection of micro, macro, and nano systems, which include sensors and actuators, and they act in a coordinated way, in a pretty coordinated way, and identify and control foreign pathogen elements. That is how they have been devised. The sensors, obviously, as we have temperature, it senses temperature. So nano devices, they are made for a particular application. So they've been beautifully implemented to to what do we say, sense the impurities or any ailments that we have inside us. So the health monitoring system that you are seeing, as I mentioned earlier, it consists of two parts: the digestible nanosensors and a wristband. So the patient is made to consume the solution, which is completely filled with the nanosensors, and then the wristband is given for monitoring. That wristband, it has to be worn completely and worn at all times. That is a mandate. And the wristband would basically be in synchronization with the sensors which have been swallowed. Okay. While both the equipments are used to collect the data of the heart rate, blood pressure, cholesterol, sleep duration, the sleep quality. There are a lot of other factors. These are very minimum that even the digestive efficiency also can be collected with the help of these nano devices and nano devices that have been swallowed. So the snapshot that you are seeing, it shows all the information on the wall with the help of that wristband. So our complete system is displayed on the wristband, and that data can be stored anywhere at any instant of time. So and you can share it with the medical practitioners in case of emergencies. So this is one of the basic applications. And the second one is real time detection. We all talk about real time detection. We want to know where that particular person is, or we use these nano machines or microchips for tracking. So on a funny note, I've just put up a snapshot from the movie of James Bond, Spectre movie, if you have heard it. So so in this movie we have a term which is known as smart blood that has been demonstrated. And also here also we have obviously a bunch of nano machines or microchips which have the capability of tracking the location of James Bond when he is moving in the field. So these are injected into the Bond's blood system. They're completely injected. And the institute, I forgot the name again, the institute would monitor the Bond's vital signs from anywhere on the planet. As you can see on the figure, the location can be tracked down at any time. These such this is not, I mean, jokes apart, but we also have Seattle based Blaze Bioscience science. The folks and at the Seattle based Blaze Bioscience are completely working on various kinds of injectable substances which are used to identify the cancer cells. So they can identify the cancer cells at a very preliminary stage. And the research is going on a high peak. It's by the Seattle based Blaze Bioscience. That is the company that's working on it. And then the drug delivery system, quite important when we have people with Alzheimer's, or when we have old people who have to take medication from time to time. And we have no one to monitor. Manpower has become quite less these days. So this drug delivery system is it is yet another an important aspect in terms of nano networks. And it is truly believed that nano networks not only sense the information, but they can also take some action, or they can also perform some action in case of need. So we have a sensor, as you can see on the slide. You have a nano actuator which is in blue color, which are spread all across our body. And then we have nano sensors which are yellow in color. These are also spread all across the body. And so the most trustworthy application that has been implemented is the real-time glucose control. This is a very, all of there are a lot of diabetics that we are seeing off late. So not off late, it's been there from quite a while. So the glucose control, real-time glucose control, there are machines that are there basically. So the nano sensors that I used are spread in the blood vessels, as you can see in the figure, and can monitor the glucose level. And simultaneously, the nano machines have also the capability. So the actuators are the outputs, as we mentioned earlier. So they have the capability to induce or release the insulin, and in order to regulate the glucose level. So there's no more taking tablets, or no more injecting ourselves from the exteriors, but we have the sensors and actuators to do the drug delivery for us in our body. So the signal levels that we're talking about can be sent. So if there's no automation that is there, automation, if you're not comfortable with that, so we also have wearable devices, or the smartphones which are used for monitoring. And with the help of those wearable devices, the message can be sent to the nano sensor, and the actuator can induce the drug into the body. So this is one more example of drug delivery systems. You have a lot of other examples that you must have, you do understand, but these are the core applications. And this is the this has also been taken from Internet of Nano Things, the ENF Architects. He's the one who tossed the word Internet of Nano Things basically in the year 2008, between 2008 and 2010. So we can see that the technology is relatively new and there's a lot of scope. It gives us a lot of scope to work on. So when we are talking about the components, the four basic components are the nano nodes, nano routers, nano micro interface devices, and gateways. So this would, this would basically take us back to the IoT architecture. We've seen all of them there, isn't it? So, the basic components of network IoT architecture have come up from the have basically come up from the IoT architecture itself, and nano nodes are the simplest. We can they are an alternate terminology for the simplest nano machines, and they have the ability to perform a simple computation, but they have limited memory. As I told you, the memory, there are a lot of drawbacks. I wouldn't call them as drawbacks. We have to exploit them, the limited memory memory concept, and we have to keep relaying the information from one node to another rather than buffering it. um, limited memory is something that I just told you, and then it can only transmit for short distances, as mentioned, only millimeters. That is the capability that we have, because the reason behind that is it has a reduced energy. The nano nodes have a quite reduced energy, and it also has limited communication capabilities. So, and the biological nanosensor nodes, which are installed or implanted inside the human body, and the nano machines with communication capabilities are integrated in all types of things, such as even books, keys, paper folders. They're all termed as, we can also install, implant them other than the body, we can implant them there. And you can call them as the nano nodes. Moving on, the nano routers. These are devices are have much. I mean, how do I put across? In comparison to the nano nodes, these nano routers have large computational resources and are basically suitable for accumulating or aggregating the entire information that is coming from the limited nano machines. So there's not much load on the nano nodes that are spread all across our body. We have nano routers. They are going to collect all the information. As you can see, you can see the in the diagram, it represents the intra-body nano networks for healthcare applications, because the entire concept of FTP is healthcare. I've tried to put in more of healthcare applications in here. So the nano nodes are pretty small, as you can see, and the nano router is as good as an antenna that it's very similar to the cluster of nodes that we see around the base station. um, and you have a cluster head, the one which is known as the one completely in white. It is a nano micro interface. Okay, and then the gateway, obviously, in order to connect the inside world to the outside world. Okay, that's what. And the links, the nano links, when we are talking about the dotted line, we talk about the molecular communication. And then the micro link is the hardcore line, which is between the gateway and the nano micro interface. And via the gateway, it goes on to the internet and or the cloud, or you can do any sort of computing that you want on the internet, and then send it over to the healthcare provider. So these are the basic network architecture elements that we have again witnessed in healthcare applications for nano things. And this is an interconnected office. So this is an interconnected office where we can see, as I told you, we can put nano nodes and books, pens, and on the router everywhere all around. So this figure depicts the same, and I guess it is self-explanatory. The same components have been moved on to another application. Nothing much to talk of over here. And then this is the middleware architecture. So middleware architecture is, the very important. The design of middleware is very, very difficult, basically, and it supports the Internet of Nano things very strongly. So the gateways that we see over here, they have they contain the system management and data analysis modules, and towards the user end, the one that we are seeing over here, towards the user end, at the user terminal, what we see over here is the programming abstractions link to the micro gateway middleware, and the application services that are used, that use the data from the nano networks. So this middleware is a very core area of research, developing a middleware which is used for the communication between the nano sensor, whether it be molecular or whether it be electromagnetic, via the micro gateway to the user terminal and then to the application services. So there is a lot of scope when we're talking about, especially for the networking folks. There's a lot of scope for us to develop the middleware architectures. It's pretty difficult too. That's, according to my knowledge. So, and a very important segment of the nano network. So this is the designing. So now finally we are moving on to the channel modeling and designing of the nano network. When we are talking about designing the nano network, the properties of nanomaterials, we are following the bottom-up approach here for the use case that we're going to see. So the property of nanomaterials, and then the frequency band of operation of electromagnetic nano transceivers, and then the channel models and information models. We are going to see all of that in the in the system model, basically. And I hope the bottom up architecture is pretty well understood, because whatever we have seen in the molecular communication is presented in a different manner. So now we talk about the channel modeling, modulation, and the protocols here, which are very, very, very important when we are trying to build a nano network. So audio is not good. Am I okay now? I don't know.
Ma'am, in middle it is like audio is not stable, ma'am.
Okay, probably that's the reason why I've turned off the video too,
Yes.
so that the audio is good. But unfortunately, right, I'll try to put the mic right in front of my mouth so that it's much better.
Yes, now it is good.
So we've seen the basic elements like nano routers, micro interface devices, and nodes, etc. in the previous application. And moving forward with the communication challenges, the basic communication challenges, whatever we are seeing on the slide over here are the communication challenges for the nano networks, whether it be electromagnetic or whether it be molecular. So starting off with the graphene based nano antennas, we've seen the graphene based nano antennas, and the terahertz band has also been discussed. And because of this terahertz channel, it being very short range, so the distances are always between below 1 meter or a few meters. And then when we are talking about channel modeling, we talk about channel modeling that is investigated in the terahertz band in terms of path loss, noise, bandwidth, and channel capacity. So when we talk of path loss, the total path loss for traveling in the terahertz band is basically contributed by two things. Because we're talking about the molecules here, the transmission of molecules. So one is the spreading loss that we're going to see here in the path loss. We'll be seeing the spreading loss, and the next is the absorption loss. Talking about the molecules, there's always this absorption loss, molecular absorption loss to be very precise. So the spreading loss is basically because of the attenuation due to the expansion of the wave as it propagates via a particular medium. That is what the spreading loss is caused because of, and it completely depends on the signal frequency and the transmission distance. Path loss itself is dependent on distance. Most of the very basic path loss that we've seen in the regular communication distance systems is always distance dependent, and hence the same thing also continues here. It is distance dependent and also the signal frequency dependent, and the frequency that we are talking over here is in the range of terahertz. Please do mind that we're talking about the terahertz frequency range. And the absorption loss, the second one is the absorption loss. I'll just, please give me a minute. So the absorption loss is because of the attenuation of propagating wave will undergo because of the molecular absorption. So this phenomenon is the absorption loss is a phenomenon that depends on how do I put it, the concentration and the mixture of the molecules also. That is those are encountered in the path, in the entire path. So that is what absorption loss accounts to. And we have different types of molecules and the different resonant frequencies, and they're not confined to a single frequency, a single center frequency. So they spread over a range of frequencies. So as a result, the terahertz channel that we are talking about is absolutely frequency selective. And apart from that, the scattering of the nanoparticles, we can talk about them as nanoparticles, and the multipath propagation effects can affect the signal strength at the receiver. So it can completely affect the signal strength at the receiver. So this is a disadvantage when you're talking about the path loss, which is quite but natural. And moving on to noise, noise is no different. The KTB that we always know as the thermal noise, it still exists here. And the ambient noise in the terahertz channel is mostly because of the molecular noise, obviously, because there's molecular, when you have EM waves, it is because of the EM wave, and because we have molecular communication, it is because of the molecules. So when we are talking about, when we talked about molecular absorption loss in the previous path loss, it does not only attenuate the transmitted signal. Path loss is what our transmitted signal is basically attenuated to an extent. So apart from attenuating the transmitted signal, it also induces noise. The molecular absorption induces noise, and the equivalent noise temperature N naught that we toss the term as is calculated with the help of KTB only, and it's not white colored, not completely white colored. We cannot call it as AWGN, additive white Gaussian noise, but yes, the power spectral density of the noise, if we tend to see the power spectral density of this noise, it has several small peaks, several peaks. So so this type of noise basically appears when we are transmitting, So there will be no noise unless the channel is used. The quite that's also, by default, unless the channel is used, there won't be much noise, unlike the traditional communication systems. So moving forward to the bandwidth and channel capacity, we all know about the bandwidth and the channel capacity. There's no, they're very important terms, and the molecular absorption. The molecular absorption again determines the bandwidth of the terahertz channel. So the available bandwidth completely depends on the molecular composition of the channel and also the transmission distance. We'll be seeing the the path loss model in the next slide. So, and this on-off keying modulation is something we've already seen in the previous modulation technique when we are talking about the a molecular communication, and the sort of protocols. Moving on to the protocols for nano networks. Um, this is a very open issue or open research area when we talk about communication between two nano machines. So the first open area in protocols for nano networks is channel sharing. So different we have different channel access mechanisms for the nano networks which have to be addressed. So for example, we all are aware of the medium access control protocols, for example, CSMA and the other variants of CSMA. And these CSMA cannot be used for pulse-based communications. We have termed nano communications as on-off keying, so they can literally be termed as pulse-based communications, and we cannot use these CSMA protocols for such pulse-based communications because there is no carrier signal to sense. You should have a carrier signal to sense. When you're talking about pulse, I hope you're able to understand what I'm trying to say. When you're trying to transmit a pulse, there wouldn't be any carrier that is there to sense. So obviously CSMA does not work much, right? So apart from that, there's one more open area is the synchronization that has to be maintained among several nano nodes is also quite difficult. So moving back to the pulse-based communications in the nano networks, the information, as we have seen earlier, is transmitted with the help of short pulses. And when we are transmitting something with the help of short pulses, it reduces the chance of collision among the different nano nodes which are trying to access the channel at the same time, because the pulses are of very short duration. So rather than having synchronous MAC protocols, we can put in place asynchronous MAC protocols, wherein and these asynchronous, I mean, if I go in depth, it's going to be pretty. But these, I'll just stop with one point over here. The asynchronous MAC protocols that we are talking about. How do I put it now? I'll get back to it. I'm not getting the words to actually talk about it, but the MAC protocols are have to be. I mean, we can use asynchronous MAC protocols, which produces small spikes, small pulses, small duration pulses, which will avoid the collisions between the nano devices. That is one more thing, and then. The media, we've seen almost all of it over here, the on-off keying, yes. Now moving on to the system model, the communication that we are going to see for the health purpose. This is the system model. It has been picked up from one of the biomedical applications that's been developed by the Georgia Tech faculty itself, the communication system. So we have all the four elements: the nano nodes, micro interface routers, and the gateways. We can see the system model, and so we have developed this system basically to study the authentication problem of nano networks. So I will be talking about one use case where we will be seeing the authentication of the nano networks, and this is the system model that has been developed for that. And moving forward to the channel modeling, as I told you earlier, the path loss is because of two different losses. One is the spreading loss and the other one is the absorption loss. Absorption loss is because of the molecular absorption loss, and we are talking about point to point. Point to point. I will show you the model. Let me just show you the model first. So this is the model that we have taken. A very small authentication algorithm has been developed. It's not been completely done to, but the entire model has been developed. It is in the very micro level, I can say. So you have three nodes here. The proposed model, it consists of three nodes, X, Y, and Z. And so X, we can term the skin is the interface in between. You can see this, and Y is inside the skin of the nano devices, and X and Z. I won't be talking about Z as of now. And we talk about X as an on-body nano device. So we have devised a model, the system model, which contains of three nano nodes, X, Y, and Z. So X is on-body nano node, and it is a legitimate, it's a genuine one, which will transmit information to the receiver node Y. And likewise, Y will reply back. The arrow is not showing on the other side, but Y will respond to Y. Y will respond back to X. But basically, rather than responding, Y has a task to do. The basic task of Y um, is to induce a drug into the blood cells. That is the basic application that we are seeing, the targeted drug delivery. So for the given nano health scenario, Y has to give the drug into the blood cell, and Y basically performs sensing features like it senses the temperature, blood sugar levels on periodic basis, and then it reports back to Y. It reports back to X, the legitimate node. So and on the command prompt, on the command of X, Y will induce the drugs into the cells. Y will induce drugs into the cells. So, and here we have another node that we can see in red or orange. So this nano node Z is an imposter or an intruder. So we are trying to develop an authentication algorithm. So this is the basic thing. We need to have an intruder. We have just taken three nodes out of one. One is an intruder, and this intruder Z tries to pretend to be X. So how is Y going to sense whether it is receiving the command from the imposter or the legitimate node is a very small model that has been developed. So going back, after we have seen the model, and the basic path loss is the authentication problem is completely dependent on on path loss. So it is termed as distance dependent path loss model, and we are using the fingerprint method here to discriminate the data sent by the X node from that of the intruder Z. So path loss is something which we have to know, and we have not gone beyond the basic path loss that we have seen earlier. The path loss is because of the spread and absorption loss, and we can see the model, the 20 log 4 pi df by c is pretty well known to all of us. It's no different. The only thing that varies over here is the distance, the frequency. They are completely different, and c is the speed of light in vacuum. Right, so this is what the absorption loss is. The absorption loss as defined here is 1 by EPA minus KFD. F is the frequency and D is the distance between the transmitter and the receiver, and K is termed as medium absorption coefficient. It has particular values. There are a set of values dependent on what medium it is used in. So as mentioned earlier, the absorption loss completely depends on the molecules and the concentration along its path. So it will, if it has different resonant frequencies, it is associated with different types of molecules. So this is the path loss. I mean, as the device fingerprint, as I told you, we're using the device fingerprint, and the authentication algorithm is completely feature based, and we are going to exploit the distance dependent path loss as a device fingerprint to discriminate the data that is sent by X from that of the intruder. So this problem we can toss the word as it is very similar to the detection and classification problem. And the only important distinction here is the authentication. We do not know the fingerprint of Z. We know the fingerprint of X because X is legitimate. So all we know is about X only. Z, we do not know. We do not have any idea about the fingerprint of Z. So this is a bigger limitation. So the model that we can we're going to build a binary hypothesis testing model, and that binary hypothesis testing model cannot be built on the likelihood ratio test because we are completely unaware of Z's fingerprint. So or neither we can use the Bayesian methods for valid reasons. So we're going to incorporate the Neyman Pearson based binary hypothesis testing here. And this Neyman Pearson based binary hypothesis testing is used for carrying out the authentication task. Right. So prior to going to that, let us see the path loss and how are we going to I mean
Ma'am, you are
say
not audible. No.
now
Yeah, yeah. It's
I
okay.
am Acha, probably there's a I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Right. So when we are talking about the path loss model, the one you can see over here, this is the basic path loss model that we have seen for the system model, and dxy is the distance between x and y, and dzy is the distance between z and y. It is a very small model that is developed which exploits the uh, device fingerprint, and that is dependent on the distance between the legitimate node, the two legitimate nodes, and the distance between y and z. So it is the responsibility of the y to authenticate from where the information is coming, whether it is coming from x or whether it is coming from z. If it is coming from x, it has to be accepted. If it is coming from z, it has to be rejected. So that is the basic criteria that we are looking into, and it is distance based path loss. So the path loss, so we have found out the distance, and we have subtracted the distance from the intruder to that of the legitimate nodes, between the two legitimate nodes. And if it goes beyond the threshold, so the path loss model that you can see on the screen here, the sample one, the thickness is 1 mm, but the device thickness, the thickness means distance here, it's not thickness, it is distance. So that if the distance is 1 mm, the path loss is according to the red one. And if the distance is 0.2 mm, it is according to the green one. So depending on this, you have a threshold somewhere we are going to set the threshold depending on the the general, the threshold, that is again another open research area, again, how to set the threshold basically. So if we have a threshold somewhere over here, so if it is beyond the threshold, we can say that it is legitimate. If it is below the threshold, we reject it. So that is the Y rejects it. So this is the distance based path loss method. And in the training, uh, phase, Y basically learns the path loss. You have two different phases here. One is the training phase and the other one is the one second, and the other one is the authentication phase. So when we are talking about training phase, the legitimate node Y completely learns the path loss of X transmission. Okay, so which is termed as ground truth. It is termed as ground truth, PL, the path
Bindu, ma'am.
loss between X. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Am
Yes,
I
ma'am.
beyond?
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Acha, sorry, then I'll stop just 2 minutes. So this is the training phase where we the ground truth can either be termed as a static quantity or it is a variable quantity too. So this is the ground truth, the distance between x and y. And this is the binary hypothesis that is being generated according to the Neyman Pearson model, H naught false and H1. So if H naught, I'll just jump through, probably I just assume that all of us are aware of model for hypothesis testing. So two different variants. This is the path loss between the two legitimate nodes plus error. And this is the path loss between the legitimate node and the intruder plus error. So this error is completely dependent on the zero mean Gaussian noise. So with variance sigma square m, and the mean is 0. So for simplicity, after a particular, I've directly given the values here, but yes, because the paper is under working, I haven't displayed the values. So if the hypothesis is equal to 1, the received packet is accepted by y, and if hypothesis 0, sorry about that, if h1 is 0, then received packet is rejected. So because we know what the ground truth is, what do you mean by ground truth? The path loss between x and y. So for accurate authentication, we use the Neyman Pearson model. So according to the Neyman Pearson model, it is simply z minus ground truth, and you compare it with the threshold tau. So tau is obtained, we obtain tau from the complementary cumulative distribution function Q factor in the Gaussian. So this is the authentication model. I mean, a small authentication model that has been presented to you. And this is the entire algorithm. So depending on training happens, h not equal to 1, we are training it. And depending on what the hypothesis is, where y either accepts it or rejects it. And challenges, we've talked about a lot of challenges, security, privacy, and these happen to be the major ones. And these are the open research areas. A lot of work has been happening, and there is a scope for everyone. A communication engineer, a chemical engineer, a VLSI design engineer, everyone has a lot of scope. Computing, it's an amalgamation of interdisciplinary fields. Which gives us this the future advancements of IONT. I've specifically mentioned the routing open research areas. So this is the conclusion. Obviously, nano machines are going to be the future. We have a lot of movies that have been developed, so they are going to come into reality, especially when we are talking about security or military applications or healthcare or environment protection. Nano machines have a lot of future, and the framework design has to be developed. It's a very small model that has been presented to you guys. There's a lot more insight to it, which will be which has to be worked on. Thank you very much. And these are the references that I've used to build the presentation. Thank you all.
Participants, any doubts? It seems excellent presentation, ma'am.
I hope it is so, but yeah, but it is relatively a very new technology, and there's a lot of scope. I've learned a lot, and I really thank Anil for giving Dr. Anil Kumar for giving me this opportunity. There's a lot that I've learned apart from what has been known to me. Thank you very much for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you introducing about this nanotechnology application of all these nano networks and how to design a nano network. And you have explained about channel modeling. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you for accepting our request, ma'am, immediately.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much, everyone, for bearing with me for 1.5 hours. I hope there's some take-home points. I seriously hope there are some takeaway points. Thank you again. I think can I leave?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Yes, tomorrow is the last day of this FDP, and there will be a test on the end of all sessions. So whatever the PPTs they have shared, we have shared with you, please go through them and please try to write the exam. So exam marks and your attendance marks, everything will be considered for your certificate. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have all filled the attendance.